All right, now let's talk about some ways to train your club face and to get it square at impact. First off, if we have something that's way too far off, it might be too difficult to get our face square. If our face is extremely open at address, it might be hard to close it down enough. If our grip is extremely weak in this direction, it might be hard to close it down enough when we're coming down into impact. Unless we're doing something radical like coming way over the top or really adding a lot of loft or really trying to flip our arms over hard at impact, something that creates too much timing or too much compensation, it can be difficult to square up our club face. So I don't mind if we have a little bit of an open face. I don't mind if we have, a weak grip. I don't mind if we have our shaft leaning a little bit back or we have a little bit of cupping in our wrist, all things like that that can get the face a little bit open. But again, if we're living in the world of extreme where our grip is super, super weak over here, which I do see, and people are having a really hard time closing down that club face, if you have something extreme, I would consider changing that to a little bit more neutral. It doesn't have to get all the way there, but a little bit more towards neutral, whether it's a more neutral grip or, again, not leaning the shaft way back or way forward, not having your grip be super, super strong. Whatever it might be, not having crazy wrist angles one way or another, try and get it at least closer to neutral, because that's going to put you in the game to where you can start to practice squaring up the club face. So that would be an important thing to note first off before you even get started. Now, assuming we're in the ballpark, again, you can be a little bit weak, you can be a little bit strong, you can have something on one side of the street or the other, as long as it's not way, way, way off. There are basically two things that I think everybody could benefit and either learn to square up their club face, or they can improve their ability to square up their club face on a more consistent basis. I think a beginner could do this and it would help them, and I think a professional on the PGA Tour could do this and help them. They might not need it as much, but I think it could help everybody. So the first thing I would do is I would work on some impact drills, and I would work on reverse engineering my swing from there. What does that mean? Impact, first off, you want to have an idea of where you want to get to at impact. Do you want to be a player who gets your entire body rotated open? Do you want to have some shaft lean forward? Do you want to have the shaft be more up and down? Do you want it to be somewhere in between? If you're going to have some forward shaft lean, you're going to have rotation. What you're also probably going to have is some hip depth over here and some dropping of your shoulder down and some bending of your trail arm. Those things tend to match up with a player who's very rotated and has shaft lean. Perhaps you're a player who only wants to rotate the hips and keep the chest more square at impact like this, which would be much more like Tiger Woods in 2000. Maybe you're a player who doesn't want to have a lot of rotation as you come into impact for other elements in your swing. I'm not going to tell you what impact to get into. All I'm going to tell you is, once you have an idea of where you think you want to be at impact, you can start to reverse engineer your swing from there. I'm going to go for the impact that I personally prefer for myself, which is to have a little bit more rotation with both my hips and my chest. And I also like to get my shaft leaning forward, so that way my lead hand is pretty close to being over my lead foot at impact. So I will rotate more like this with my body open. I'll get my hands forward, and when that happens, the club gets further away from the ball because I'm leaning the shaft forward, which means now I have to kick my hip back, drop my upper body down, so I'm staying down in the shot, and that's where I want to be at impact. Again, wherever you want to be, determine that. Make sure your face on is where you want it to be, whatever it's looking like, and make sure you're down the line is where you want to be at impact as well, because that's what we're going to rehearse and that's what we're going to train ourselves. Now, when you rehearse that impact position, obviously we want the face to be square. We don't want the face to be twisted open. We don't want the face to be twisted close. When I'm rehearsing it, even though I'm leaning my shaft forward, I am taking my wrist and making sure it squares up when we get to impact. I have my normal grip, and when I get to impact here, I'm doing whatever I need with the wrist to make sure the face is getting exactly square where I want it to be. Well, guess what? Now I have some tools at my disposal. First off, I have my normal grip, so I know where I want to grip the club, and I know whenever I create the shaft lean I'm looking for, how much I need to release my arms or how my arms have to rotate towards the target, and how much I either need to cup or bow my wrists in order to make this face get square to the target. So that tells me where my arm should be, it tells me where my wrist should be relative to how strong my grip is. Now I have something I can key in on. I can say, okay, I know where I want my body to be, I know where my arms and wrists need to be when I get to impact. Guess what I can start to do? I can start to play with it. First off, I would just start hitting little chip shots. I just swivel back and through, hit little 5-yard chips, and just get a feel for what I want my body to feel like as I'm coming through impact. Then hit like 20 or 30-yard chips, a little bit bigger swings, chipping it. Then 50 or 60-yard shots and get a little bit bigger swings, and again, get a feel for it. Then start to pay attention to saying, okay, I know where I want to be to impact. How do I want to get there? Do I want to be in this position and then basically keep everything locked as I'm coming down so I don't have any opening or closing of the face? I'm not releasing my arms very much. I'm just kind of getting everything in position and turning, because if you are, then you can say, okay, where do I need to be at the top of my swing, and how do I need to move starting the downswing from here to here? That way everything's locked in position, and all I have to do is turn and feel like I'm doing nothing else through the golf ball. Or perhaps you don't want to feel that. Maybe you want to feel like you're releasing the club, or you want to feel like you're driving your hands forward because it feels more powerful, or you feel like you can make better contact that way. Whatever it is, that's up to you. But you can start to say, okay, I know where I want to be at impact. Maybe I want to have a little bit more release. So I am allowed to have the face get a little bit more open in my backswing or in my downswing. That way when I come into it, I can release the club more in this direction and square it up, because that feels better to me. I feel like I have a chance of squaring it open from an open face, versus if I'm just trying to hold the face forever, I don't feel like I can do it. Whatever your feels are, that's up to you. But again, you have tools to play with, because if you know where you want to be at impact, you can then decide, okay, how do I want this club to come into that impact position, and how do I want my body to move that feels good to me and it looks right to me, and it's producing the shots I want to see. Then you can take that further. You can say, okay, now that I have an idea of where I want to be at impact and how I want it to come into impact, well, with my backswing, what do I need to do from the top of my swing to make myself get into those positions so I'm releasing the club the way I want and I'm getting my body where I wanted it to be? Well, guess what's happening? Now you're telling yourself, okay, I know what I need to do with my wrist one way or another. I'm telling myself how I need to release the club one way or another. And I'm telling my body what it needs to do to get in that position. Well, now you're starting to understand what the wrists are doing, what the arms are doing, how you're releasing the club, how the body's moving. You're getting a feel for all of these things, and you can start to train that into your swing. Because again, you took where you wanted to be, and now you can start to reverse engineer the pieces all the way back. You could go all the way back to your setup if you wanted. You could say, okay, again, I know where I want to be at the top of my swing. Well, where do I want to be at address to get into the backswing I want to then work down in the downswing? Again, you can take it as far back as you want, or you could leave it as short as you want. But if you understand where you want to be at impact, and you have a sense of how the club is moving through impact as you're hitting shots, well, again, now you can start to reverse engineer and say, okay, from the top of my swing, what do I need to do with my body to get in position and then ultimately get into that impact that I'm really looking for? Because if you get into that impact, what's going to happen with the club face? It's going to square up because you already had it square. You got your grip and the wrist and your arm in the position you wanted, and if you can return to that same position, the face is going to be square. So having a bunch of impact drills where you start by first identifying where you want to be at impact, then hitting little half shots, and then eventually going from the top of your swing and rehearsing back down to impact and getting a feel for all those details is going to give you a much better sense of where your club face is and how your body, hands, arms have to release the club to square it up at the bottom. So that's the first place I would start. It's going to be a really good education on your golf swing, and it's also going to train you to square up the club face. The other thing I would do is I would do a hanger drill. I don't know who invented the hanger drill. I remember the first person who ever showed me the hanger drill was George Gankis, so shout out George for being the first person to show me it. But what a really cool idea is with this hanger, and I like just makeshifting one. I like taking a hanger out of my closet. I like taking tape I have laying around at home and just taking a club out of my bag, or a spare club, hopefully a spare club like an 8-iron, 9-iron, 7-iron. That way you can just leave this thing on there permanently. But if you have a hanger on there and you tape it on correctly, guess what you got to do? You got to get a sense of where this club face is, because this hanger, if you watch, is touching my forearm when I get the club face square. So there's a couple things we got to do here. First off, the hanger for a right-handed golfer is going to be taped on the right side of the club. And now we get to determine, where is this hanger going to be? Is it going to be straight up and down with the face, or am I going to start twisting it to the right in this direction? That's going to be based on a couple of things. The more I get the hanger straight up and down, the more I can have the face be open in this direction. Let's say I even twisted it this way a little bit, which you could do if you wanted. That would get the face much more open when the hanger starts to touch my forearm. If I start to get the hanger twisted more to the right of the club face, I have to have the face twist much more closed in order to make that hanger touch. And as you can see, the face is more closed over here. So again, you get to determine, where do I want my club face to be? And I would determine that by impact. Again, decide where you want your grip to be, how far forward or back you want your hands to be, and then square up the club face from there with your wrists. Once you square up the club face, you can say, okay, let me twist that hanger until it's touching my forearm, and that's where the hanger should be set. Now you can make some swings where you get that hanger to touch as you're coming down, and you can keep it touching. Most importantly, when you get to impact, because that is the moment of truth, you can get to impact, make sure that hanger is touching, and now you're squaring up the club face for however much shaft lean you want and whatever wrist conditions you want. The other thing that's going to go into that, which is already going to be set up if you just did what I said, but the other thing that goes into it is how weak or strong is our grip. The weaker our grip is, the more this thing is going to be straight up and down because my hand is twisted away from the hanger. So I can afford to have it be more straight up and down and still get the face square. If my grip is stronger because I'm twisting it away from the target, I can chase the hanger away from that forearm. That way, again, I can square up the club face with that stronger grip and get it in the position I want. So again, wherever you want the face, whether you want it to be more this way, this way, this way, this way, wherever you want the face, both at impact and as you're coming into the downswing, you could set the hanger in position for that. And now if you can get the hanger to touch, you can make the club face get square. Most people will try and make the hanger touch immediately and they'll keep it there for their entire swing. Some people will just set it up top and keep it there. Some people won't make it touch until the downswing and then they're in position. But again, wherever you set it, it doesn't matter as long as it's touching the moment you get into impact right here, because that's ultimately the moment we need to square up the club face. And again, it's going to give you a sense, because if that hanger's touching, you know you're squaring up the club face, again, assuming your release is good. But you'll know you're squaring up the club face. If the hanger is not touching over here, you know the face is getting more open than you wanted it to. And if this hanger is pressing in there extremely hard in your form, there's a lot of pressure, well, that face is twisting more close. So if you get the hanger to touch with a good amount of pressure that you're looking for, that face can get in the position that you want. And again, you can get a sense of where my face is and what my wrists need to do in order to square up that club face. So another really good drill. So if you can work on reverse engineering impact and you can work on some hanger drills, you get a really good sense of where your club face is. And then from there, I recommend just pay attention to your ball flight, because if you know you're squaring up the club face well with the hanger and with reverse engineering, now you get to take a look at your start line. You get to say, okay, is my ball starting right? Is it starting left or is it starting on line? Because it should be starting on line. And if it's not, and you know you're doing the drills correctly, now you can say, okay, well, I'm basically going to be able to eliminate this down to one thing now. Maybe I'm getting underplane and I'm shoving the ball right. That's why I'm hitting it to the right. Or maybe I'm coming over the top and I'm smothering it and pulling it to the left. And as long as you get your path, your plane to be more neutral as you're coming down, your ball should be getting on line. But you're starting to eliminate the things that could be making your face get open or closed if you work on the proper drills. So those drills will help you. If you work them, you'll get a really good sense for where your face is. And again, as long as you pay attention to your ball flight, you'll really train yourself to square up that club face when you get to impact.